My brother overheard his wife asking me to pay to edit out my disabled daughter from their wedding photos and immediately banished her from their home. My younger brother David married Amelia, the woman he believed to be his soulmate, just 2 weeks ago in what seemed to be a fairy tale ceremony. Everyone who knew David could witness how his entire being lit up whenever he gazed at Amelia, and he had been marking off calendar days to their wedding with unbridled excitement. Their meticulously designed invitation cards clearly indicated their initial intention for an exclusively adult celebration. However, David surprised me with a phone call a few weeks before the wedding. His voice trembling with emotion, he told me he wanted to make a special exception for my daughter Katie, his beloved niece. Stunned by his request, I asked if he was absolutely certain. David's voice cracked as he explained how Katie had captured his heart and that he couldn't imagine his special day without her as their flower girl. His words brought tears to my eyes. Uncle David had always held an irreplaceable spot in Katie's heart, and she absolutely adored him. He assured me with unwavering conviction that he had discussed it with his bride-to-be, and she had given her blessing. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable as he expressed how much Katie's presence would mean to him on this momentous occasion. To understand the magnitude of this gesture, you need to know about my precious Katie. She entered this world partially paralyzed, her body motionless below her arms, a condition that devastated our world but never extinguished her luminous spirit. When my husband Roger and I first confronted the diagnosis, it felt as though the very foundations of our universe had crumbled beneath us. We plunged into an abyss of uncertainty and fear, desperately seeking answers. Our journey became a frantic pilgrimage from one specialist to another, clutching at every fragment of hope, exploring every conceivable treatment option. Yet each consultation ended with the same devastating verdict. Katie's condition was permanent and irreversible. Those initial months merged into a haze of sleepless nights, countless tears, and questions that seemed to echo endlessly in our minds without resolution. The weight of powerlessness crushed us, our hearts shattering anew each time we contemplated our daughter's future. Yet gradually, like a delicate flower pushing through concrete, hope began to bloom. We discovered other families navigating similar paths, their experiences becoming guiding lights in our darkest hours. Our perspective shifted. Instead of mourning what Katie couldn't do, we began celebrating her countless abilities, enveloping her in a fortress of love and unwavering support. Among those who truly grasped Katie's inherent worth, Uncle David emerged as a radiant beacon of joy and acceptance. He possessed an extraordinary gift, the ability to make Katie's disability dissolve into insignificance whenever they were together. This magical talent of his became especially precious when other family members, despite their best intentions, created moments of awkwardness or discomfort. Take my mother, for instance. The day she first laid eyes on Katie after her birth, her reaction cut deeper than any surgeon's scalpel. Instead of offering comfort or hope, she pulled me aside, her whispered words like poison in my ears. Perhaps you should try for another child, one that can walk. My heart froze as those cruel words hung in the air. She persisted, suggesting that if I tried again, I might have a better baby, as if my beautiful Katie was somehow defective or unworthy. The casual cruelty of her words left me paralyzed with shock and grief. But David, my valiant defender of a brother, leapt to our defense with the ferocity of a lion protecting its cubs. His eyes blazed with righteous indignation as he confronted our mother's callousness head-on. Katie is perfect exactly as she is, he thundered, his voice quivering with emotion yet resolute in its conviction. She doesn't need to be compared to anyone, and she certainly doesn't need to be replaced. The raw intensity of his defense, the protective fury that resonated in his voice as he championed my child, is forever etched in my heart. From that day forward, I've strictly limited my mother's access to Katie, refusing to subject my precious daughter to such poisonous attitudes. In the years that followed, David transformed into Katie's devoted weekend guardian. Come rain or shine, he would materialize at our doorstep, armed with endless enthusiasm for their special world of games, silly TV shows, and infectious laughter. Those cherished weekend hours worked magic, transforming Katie into pure radiance, just a child basking in the warmth of unconditional love from her favorite person in the world. Their extraordinary bond has been a blessing that continues to enrich not just Katie's life, but our entire family's existence. So when David's call came about making an exception to his child-free wedding policy, the gesture struck a chord deep within my soul. This wasn't merely about including Katie in the wedding. It was David once again demonstrating the depth of his love and commitment to his special relationship with her. However, I would soon discover that his bride-to-be, Amelia, harbored feelings that stood in stark contrast to his enthusiasm for Katie's participation. Just days after David's heartfelt invitation, Amelia's true colors began to seep through the cracks of her carefully constructed facade. She contacted me directly, her voice dripping with barely concealed venom as she laid out a litany of requirements for Katie's attendance. Each demand felt like a carefully calculated barrier, meticulously designed to make Katie's participation as challenging as possible. "The dress must be beige," she commanded, her tone brooking no argument, flowing but not attention-seeking. "And her hair." She paused meaningfully, letting the silence stretch uncomfortably. "Must be styled in a way that won't detract from the wedding's aesthetic perfection." The suffocating nature of her demands left me reeling, but I swallowed my rising indignation. After all, this was her wedding day, and I was determined to maintain peace for David's sake. My singular focus remained ensuring Katie could be present to support her beloved uncle. With unwavering determination, I ventured out and discovered a stunning beige dress that I believed perfectly aligned with Amelia's exacting specifications. As instructed, I dutifully sent her a photograph of the carefully chosen outfit. Her response struck like lightning, sharp and immediate. "This looks absolutely lifeless," she sneered through the cold medium of text. "Too bland. I want something more colorful." The maddening contradiction in her demands sent my thoughts spinning. Hadn't she explicitly demanded beige? Rather than waste more precious resources, I adopted a more strategic approach, deciding to present her with multiple options before making another purchase. When she finally deigned to select one, I couldn't help but notice the cruel irony. Her choice was virtually indistinguishable from the first dress she had so venomously rejected, save for an almost imperceptible whisper of pink in the fabric. In that moment, the truth crystallized with stunning clarity. This had nothing to do with the dress at all. Amelia was orchestrating an elaborate dance of obstacles, testing the limits of my patience, perhaps secretly hoping I would surrender and withdraw Katie from the wedding entirely. The long-anticipated wedding day dawned with all its promised splendor, and Katie emerged as an ethereal vision of grace in her meticulously chosen beige dress. As she guided her wheelchair down the flower-strewn aisle, pausing with deliberate care to scatter rose petals in elegant arcs, her face radiated pure, uncontained joy. The entire congregation seemed to collectively hold its breath before erupting in spontaneous, heartfelt applause, deeply moved by the sight of this extraordinary child participating so fully in this sacred moment. The dress billowed like a gentle cloud around her wheelchair as she progressed forward, her luminous smile transforming the entire sanctuary into a cathedral of light and love. The guests' reaction transcended mere politeness. It was a tidal wave of genuine emotion that swept through the church. A collective gasp of admiration gave way to thunderous applause that seemed to lift Katie's spirit even higher, carrying her forward on waves of acceptance and celebration. My heart swelled to bursting with pride and fierce love as I watched my daughter claim her rightful place in this momentous celebration. I caught David's eye, finding his face already awash with tears of joy, his expression mirroring the overwhelming pride that threatened to burst my own heart. But then came Amelia's grand entrance, and the atmosphere shifted perceptibly. She was undeniably resplendent in her designer wedding gown, a vision in white that drew every eye. Yet as she glided past Katie, her carefully maintained mask of bridal bliss slipped for one telling moment. Instead of acknowledging the flower girl, who had just moved an entire congregation to tears, she cast a glacial glance in Katie's direction, her perfectly painted lips curling in barely disguised revulsion. The look lasted mere seconds, but its cruelty cut like a blade through the joy-filled atmosphere. Still, I forced myself to suppress the wave of protective anger that surged within me, determined not to let anything mar David's moment of happiness. The weeks following the wedding dissolved into a kaleidoscope of social media updates, each carefully curated snapshot showing the newlyweds basking in honeymoon bliss. David's posts radiated pure joy, and I found myself genuinely celebrating my brother's apparent marital contentment. Upon their return, David extended an invitation that seemed perfectly ordinary: lunch at their new home with our intimate family circle, Roger, our parents, and me. The gathering promised a perfect opportunity to properly toast their return and bask in the warmth of family togetherness. What none of us could have anticipated was how this seemingly innocent family gathering would become the stage for Amelia's true nature to emerge in all its venomous glory. The moment we crossed their threshold, David's face illuminated with unbridled delight at the sight of Katie. Without hesitation, he produced an array of thoughtfully selected souvenirs from their honeymoon, his enthusiasm infectious as he showered Katie with attention and proudly shared how everyone had praised her wedding day performance. Katie's eyes sparkled like stars, drinking in her uncle's affection like a flower soaking up the morning sun. Yet in my peripheral vision, I watched Amelia's expression darken with each passing moment, her features twisting into a mask of barely contained fury as she observed her husband's devoted attention to his niece. The atmosphere in the room grew increasingly oppressive, thick with unspoken tension, though David remained blissfully oblivious to his wife's mounting hostility. Then came the moment that would shatter our family's peace like a hammer through glass. Amelia approached me with a smile that never reached her eyes, her movements calculated and precise as she led me to one of the bedrooms. What followed was a conversation that would forever alter the course of our family's story. She began with artificial praise about our compliance with her wedding requirements, each word dripping with thinly veiled condescension. Then, without warning, she produced her phone, her perfectly manicured nail hovering accusingly over a family photo. "Look at this abomination," she spat, her voice suddenly venomous. "Your pathetic child in that wheelchair is completely destroying the aesthetic of my perfect day." The world seemed to screech to a halt, her words hanging in the air like poison gas. Blood roared in my ears as rage and disbelief waged war in my mind. "How dare you?" I managed to whisper, my voice trembling with barely contained fury. "You knew exactly who Katie was from the beginning. What did you expect? That she would magically stop needing her wheelchair for your precious photos?" Amelia's response emerged as a cruel, brittle laugh that sent icy fingers down my spine. "That's not my concern," she sneered with calculated malice. "Every time I look at these supposedly perfect wedding photos, all I can see is that hideous wheelchair marring everything. You need to pay for someone to either edit her out completely, or at least make it appear as though she's sitting in a normal chair like everyone else." The sheer audacity and cruelty of her demand made my blood boil with volcanic fury. "Are you actually suggesting that I should pay someone to erase my daughter's existence or pretend she isn't disabled?" I erupted, my voice rising with each word like a gathering storm. "You're an absolute monster, Amelia. I'm proud of my daughter exactly as she is, and if you had such deep-seated issues with her being part of the wedding, you should have never pretended to accept her presence in the first place." What neither of us realized was that David had been standing in the shadows of the hallway, absorbing every venomous word of our exchange. His voice, when it came, cut through the tension like Arctic wind. "So this is who you really are?" he demanded, stepping into the room with measured deliberation. His face was a battlefield of emotions, betrayal, disgust, and rage warring for dominance. Amelia's face drained of all color as she watched her carefully constructed facade crumble to dust. She stammered, desperately trying to backpedal, but the damage was irreversible. David's next words thundered through the room with the force of an avalanche. "You manipulated me into believing you were a compassionate soul, when in reality, you've been harboring this toxic hatred for my family all along." When Amelia attempted to defend herself, claiming it was just about Katie, she only succeeded in digging her grave deeper. She had the audacity to accuse David of consistently prioritizing Katie over everyone else, including their marriage, because he felt sorry for her disability. Each word seemed to physically wound David as he listened to the woman he had married reveal the darkness lurking beneath her polished exterior. "I love Katie as if she were my own daughter," David declared, his voice steady despite the tempest of emotions behind it. "The fact that I even have to explain this fundamental truth shows how utterly shallow and cruel you truly are. Katie is an integral part of my family, and if you harbor such hatred for her, then I will not, remain married to you. You're nothing but an ableist bigot, and I refuse to share my life with someone capable of such calculated cruelty. Pack your things and get out of my house now." The aftermath unfolded with swift and decisive finality. Amelia departed that day clutching only her phone and car keys, her carefully crafted facade of decency shattered beyond repair, her true nature exposed for all to witness. In the weeks that followed, David initiated the process of having their marriage annulled, citing Amelia's deliberate deception about accepting his family as irrefutable grounds for dissolution. For months have passed since that fateful day, and our family has emerged stronger from the crucible of this ordeal. David, now liberated from the shackles of a toxic marriage, radiates a peace that comes from choosing truth over pretense, love over prejudice. We recently embarked on a family vacation together, and watching David and Katie's special bond continue to flourish brings healing tears to all our hearts. Sometimes life's darkest moments serve to illuminate the pure beauty of true family love, the kind that accepts, celebrates, and fiercely protects each member exactly as they are. In the end, what Amelia failed to comprehend was that family isn't about maintaining perfect appearances or crafting an idealized facade. It's about unconditional love, unwavering acceptance, and standing united through life's storms. Katie's wheelchair isn't an imperfection to be edited away. It's an integral part of who she is, and who she is remains beautiful, worthy, and profoundly loved. As for David, his choice that day demonstrated that sometimes the most powerful act of love isn't saying, "I do." It's saying, "I won't," to hatred and discrimination, even when it means walking away from what you thought was your happy ending. Update 1. I'm being inundated with messages and comments, so let me provide absolute clarity here. Amelia had previously encountered Katie and was intimately aware of her extraordinary bond with my brother. However, she had masterfully concealed her deep-seated contempt for my daughter until now. Never once did I suspect she harbored such venomous hatred towards Katie. We've always strived to ensure Katie feels completely normal, avoiding any special treatment due to her condition, though I acknowledge some people might feel uncomfortable seeing a child in a wheelchair, especially at a wedding. Regardless of Katie's wheelchair, she's a strikingly beautiful child, blessed with her father's golden hair and crystal blue eyes. It's become painfully evident that Amelia's criticisms stemmed purely from toxic jealousy. David, being Katie's godfather, occupies a uniquely special position in her life. I know with unshakable certainty that my husband will eternally support our daughter, come what may. He's fiercely protective of Katie, cherishing her as if she were his own flesh and blood. Learning of Amelia's true feelings and realizing her ulterior motives regarding Katie must have felt like a dagger to his heart. Thankfully, Katie remained blissfully absorbed in her cartoons during our confrontation. Had she overheard anything, she would certainly have questioned me later. Update 2. For those following this saga, my brother is actively pursuing an annulment of his marriage. David and his legal counsel are resolute that Amelia deliberately deceived him, presenting a carefully crafted persona of someone who would embrace his family wholeheartedly. When the reality of David's unwavering resolve to end their marriage struck her, Amelia launched into a desperate campaign to salvage their relationship. She attempted to extend what I could only describe as a hollow apology to me, but her words rang false, devoid of any genuine remorse or accountability. Recognizing her apology as merely a calculated attempt to deflect criticism, I found it impossible to accept. This rejection only served to intensify her fury. She immediately shifted into attack mode, hurling accusations that I had systematically destroyed my brother's chance at happiness. In her twisted narrative, I became the villain responsible for driving David away, rather than her own reprehensible actions being the cause. She even went so far as to claim that David could have found contentment with her, if not for my interference. As if this weren't enough, Amelia's parents launched their own offensive, reaching out to my parents in an attempt to shift blame for their daughter's predicament onto Katie and me. Fortunately, my parents stood firm against these baseless accusations. My father, in particular, expressed his profound relief that she would no longer be part of our family, suggesting they should feel ashamed of raising someone capable of such cruelty. The unwavering support from my family throughout this ordeal fills me with immense gratitude. During a heart-to-heart conversation with my brother about the situation with Amelia, he helped me see that discovering her true nature now was infinitely better than learning it later, when she might have inflicted even deeper wounds by expressing such toxicity directly in front of Katie. I wholeheartedly agree, and I'm profoundly relieved that we're successfully excising Amelia from our lives. Update 3. For those invested in this journey, it's been 4 months since my last update. My brother has officially severed his marriage to Amelia through a formal annulment. When the truth about their failed marriage became public knowledge, the community's reaction was overwhelmingly supportive of our family and condemnatory towards Amelia. Eventually, she attempted another hollow apology, but I chose to block her without acknowledgement, refusing to give her toxic presence any further space in our lives. Recently, our family enjoyed a wonderful vacation together, and I'm overjoyed to report that David and Katie's special bond continues to flourish, stronger and more beautiful than ever. I'm eternally grateful that this challenging chapter has only served to strengthen our family's connections, proving that love and acceptance will always triumph over prejudice and hatred. Thank you for your continued support and interest in our story. And if you haven't already subscribed, please do so and activate notifications to stay informed about more compelling real-life stories happening in your community.